Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the Celtic Way. It's the full-time reaction. Celtic 4, Newcastle United 0. Celtic win the inaugural Adidas Trophy, Ryan. An emphatic victory over the English Premier League side at Parkhead. Goals from Arnott Engels, a penalty, Johnny Kenny, Liam Scales, Yang and Liam Scales as pre-season friendlies go, Ryan. I enjoyed that again. Did you?
You're starting to enjoy these pre-season friendlies.
Yeah, they're not my thing.
They are when Celtic play like that, and I just thought it was a perfect showing of counter-attacking football and how counter-attacking football against quality opposition with good players can be so effective. We've seen it last season against Manchester City and Chelsea, respectively. I mentioned that after the Sporting Club game, but we've seen it at a higher level again today against Newcastle. They did it during the week against Sporting. They did it against Newcastle. And before anybody says that was Newcastle's B team, they're spending, 50, 60 million on players like Sandro Tonali. They're paying X amount of money for Anthony Gordon. These are good names, household names, internationals for their respective countries. And Celtic's football was scintillating at times today. It bodes really well for the season ahead that they did that against such good opposition, which they are. And 4-0, and as I said during the week about the 2-0 victory, 4-0 didn't flatter Celtic at all. They could have and probably should have scored more goals. Johnny Kenny missed arguably what was an open goal, you would say. Chances for Arnott Engels. Anamura would have tore the roof off the place if he'd scored that bicycle kick at the end. But all in all, a really, really strong performance from Celtic against quality opposition.
I think Johnny Kenny was channeling his inner Anamura when he missed that fresh air. That, to be fair, Ryan, Arnott Engels was guilty of fresh air as well. But lots of takeaways today for me, Ryan. Anamura I thought was excellent. Till the prodigal son returned. Thought Trusty was very good as well. You know what I mean? And Johnny Kenny I thought led the line particularly well. Got his goal that his endeavour and effort deserved. Somebody wants to take the eyes and Maida aside and say, here, pre-season friendly, you shouldn't be going at full tilt. But I understand why Kieran Tierney called him a machine, an absolute machine. Just lots of good things happening today, Ryan, as you say. Luke McCowan as well, I thought was excellent. And that third goal for me was the, winning it back off Newcastle defence and then that quick lightning break forward, 3-0. But behaviours, Ryan, idiosyncrasies, patterns, it's all I want to see. And very good opposition, and Celtic put them to the sword. That's 2 pre-season cup trophies we've won, Ryan. We don't usually shout about these things. It's other people's domain, these kind of things. But they could win a treble before the season started if they win the Como Cup, Ryan. That's not right, is it? That's not what Celtic do, is it?
You're about the 4th person to tell me this in terms of the pre-season treble that could happen. It's as much as they won't look too much into these trophies that are winning for one-off games. I know they'll need to play 2 games to win the Como Cup. It's good preparation and a good intensity that they're showing so early on in the season. Good opposition, Cork were a bit of a step down, but that was more of a training game, trying to get young players into the team and showing their first bits or their first glimpses of football. It was the first time we've seen Anamura as well, who again impressed today, I think, with the levels that he's going up in opposition, because you've got Cork City, you've got Amadora, Estrella, Sporting, and now Newcastle. His performances have been upped every game that he's played, and he's shown that he can thrive and survive at Celtic in the first team at this moment in time. It's a good habit to get into, winning trophies, winning games of football so early on in the season. Plenty more to come, plenty more incomings, you would say, to join the club too. But the signs are really, really positive concerning pre-season so far for Celtic.
It was also as well, Ryan, near the end, they were desperate to keep a clean sheet, weren't they, as well? Mm-hmm. Defending for their lives, and Sinizalo just wasn't wanting to be the guy who gave a goal away and all that kind of stuff. So I really like that. But Arnott Engels gets him off the mark with a penalty, Ryan. I've seen Arnott Engels stroke the ball away like that many times. He was just taken out of it by Willock, wasn't he? I think he was going to put it in the net, but Willock made sure he wasn't going to get connection, but sends a goalkeeper the wrong way for the penalty. And then Nick Pope decides to go walkabout for the second. Great assist from Schmeichel. Clearly saw your man running through the middle, and don't know what he's done, Ryan. He's gone for a headed clearance, hasn't he? Misjudged it completely, and Johnny Kenny just run round the back and simple tap in. Tremendous. Was pleased for Johnny Kenny.
I thought he had another really good performance when he was leading the line for Celtic today. I think he's a really intelligent young striker as well, not just in the way that he leads the line, but the way that he wins fouls as well for Celtic, especially in the middle of the park when he goes for that initial contact, and he can trap the ball and then get a foul in favour of his team. That's important for a young player to understand, not just how to play as a striker, but to play as a target man, be that focal point, but also win fouls. I think that's a thing that Nygren is very good at as well.
Yeah.
Just seeing him coming off the bench in the second half, and he wins fouls in effective areas. That's an important attribute for Celtic to have, particularly when they're under the cosh against good opposition in what we hope will be the Champions League this season. I think it's really, really good practice, and it shows that players are learning how to do the dirty work in Europe or in pre-season games in preparation for Europe.
I mentioned in the instant analysis, Ryan, that he gains you territory, doesn't he? He knows how to gain you territory. He's very cute when he picks up the ball and he runs forward, as you say, gains you yardage, he can get you a foul out of nothing. And Nygren's the same. You know, the late great Tommy Burns was fantastic at that. He would just get the ball, he'd run forward, and then he'd maybe miscontrol it, and he'd just launch himself, and he would always get the foul. He's very adept at it, you know. So that's something that, you know, as you say, part and parcel of football, and you know, you have to be clever at it. You know, winning the ball, winning territory, and gaining fouls, you say, in very good areas. And I like that about Johnny Kenny today. Thought he led the line pretty well.
One thing I would say is that whoever gets Johnny Kenny or wherever Johnny Kenny is playing football this season will feel the benefit of having Johnny Kenny in their side, whether that's at Celtic, coming off the bench, occasionally starting games, although it is looking a little bit busier in the striking department, especially after today with Shin Yamada's arrival from Kawasaki Frontale. But I think that he'll probably go out on loan. He'll sign a new deal and then go out on loan. But I think there's got to be something in the contract or an agreement between the two sides, between Celtic and whoever he goes out on loan with, that this guy has got to be starting every week. Now, to be honest with you, I don't think he'll need that agreement in there, because I think he's now at the stage that he will start for whatever team that he goes out on loan to. I think he's of a high quality level already, and I think he's getting better with every bit of game time that he's getting. He's exposing himself in bigger situations, in bigger games. That exposure that he's getting against the likes of Newcastle, against Sporting, against Australia, even last season when he was playing against Aberdeen, in those cameo appearances that he made, having that, he's clearly upping his level when he's playing against these teams. Yeah. And I think he could do a job for most teams in the Scottish Premiership. I include teams like Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, and that as well. I don't think you can get too many goal scorers in your team. So if there's a perfect move for the player that he's going to get game time, and that isn't always guaranteed, if there's a perfect move, then I would be okay with him going out on loan, because he's getting that game time. One for the future, but one potentially for the present as well, if depending on how the striking position develops over the coming weeks and months. Yeah,
we mentioned Anamura, Ryan. I have to say, I was watching a clever football braining operation there. Don't think he ruined a pass. He's very composed for me. He reads the game well, and you know, for someone like Hitati, who's just out of university football, I've been very impressed by what he's brought to the table so far, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. And you know, when he came off and Tierney came on, I think they both got a rousing reception, didn't they? I think it was an appreciation of both. You know, there was a kind of mutual respect from the Celtic supporters for what both were bringing to the table. But I can imagine Kieran Tierney making his presence felt, coming on to the Celtic Park for his second debut. There'll be a few tears, Ryan, shed by supporters, no doubt, seeing him back in the green and white hoops, and he puts in a wonderful cross for Scales to go and attack that. You've missed that, haven't you? Or else it's like he's never been away, but Celtic have missed that kind of whip like that, and just go and put your head on that, and it's in the net. Love it.
It's such a majestic toe poke of a cross that's desperate to be attacked by, in this case, I was going to say an attacker, but it's a defender that's attacking the ball. But a very good attacker of the ball in Liam Scales. He's scored a couple of headers in the past couple of seasons, really strong headers. But there was great direction on the header, and that's because of the cross. The cross is so delicious. He can just direct. It doesn't really need to put any power on it. All he needs is the direction, and it was the fourth goal. For me, like yourself, I'd say the third goal was my favourite out of a lot of them because it was just perfect counter-attacking football. I think there's a beauty in counter-attacking football, especially when Celtic do it against teams that are on paper a better team than themselves. They showed that speed. The ball going out to Daiza Maeda. Daiza Maeda does a heel chop into Yang, and it's a great first-time finish, a great run. Stays on side, and a great first-time finish from Yang. He's a player that can frustrate, but also not amaze, but impress you at the same time. Frustrating and impressive in equal measures, but I thought there was more of the latter than the former this afternoon. I thought he gave Matt Targett an absolutely torrid time down that side. He wanted that one-on-one battle with him, and Matt Targett didn't, and he just kept on going for it and going for it. Not everything came off, but I thought it was a really, really impressive 60 minutes or so from Yang. My main concern with Yang is his consistency. Can he do that over 50, 60 games a season? My reservations are still very much there in that regard. Yeah. But you've got, from what we've seen today, I thought he was very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he had a decent game. I still think the man on the other side of the flanks took the honours, but he...
Definitely for that third goal. I mean, although it's a great finish from Yang, Daiza Maeda does all the work. He turns his marker inside out and puts a lovely ball into Yang that's just desperate. That's just asking to be attacked by the South Korean winger. It's just a great goal from start to finish from Celtic, and a real sign of things to come, I would say, in the regular season.
I think the final piece in the jigsaw for me, Ryan, is a lethal striker. Because Celtic are getting down the flanks and they're creating, and I think if Celtic could get the striker or attacker that they desperately want, I think they could score a glut of goals. I've got to be honest, because I saw enough today to think that this team will create. I'm not saying Johnny Kenny maybe doesn't deserve a chance, but I think the thinking is that he's going to go out on loan, isn't it? I think that's what Rodgers is maybe thinking.
And go out on loan.
Yeah, so if Celtic can get a lethal hitman, I think he will thrive in this football team, because I've seen enough over the past couple of games to think they're still a potent threat going forward, and they do it at pace and they do it at speed and with purpose, which the manager always talks about. And I know people say it's Newcastle's first pre-season game. I get that, but these are household names that we're playing in that Newcastle team, and some of them made to look very ordinary indeed. And that's what pleased me greatly. Yeah,
it pleased me greatly as well. And it doesn't, it's pre-season, but these players don't become bad players overnight. Newcastle they're Saudi owned. They've got cash by the millions, gazillions, if you want to say. They've got an incredible cash reserve, almost limitless. Yeah,
a lot of money.
So the team that they've constructed, they've got Brazilian internationals, they've got English internationals, Dutch internationals. It's a really strong team from 1 to 11, and the subs bench as well. I know they were trying to blood in a couple of the youngsters into the team. This was a good win for Celtic, and I'm not going to talk it down and say it was a pre-season game. I think it's a great habit for Celtic to get into if they're beating teams like Newcastle and Sporting, because these are the teams that they're going to be facing in the Champions League in September, October, November, December, January time. Just named all the months at the Champions League. If they get through to the Champions League, of course, I need to caveat that. That's the job. That's the big focus, the main focus for Celtic. But I think there's definitely positive signs with what Celtic are doing at the moment. And long may that continue as we go into the Como Cup and in the start of the league season as well.
I want to talk about Austin Trusty. Thought he was excellent today.
So did I.
It's the kind of performance I've seen in dispatches with Austin Trusty. I saw it in Bergamo, I saw it in the Allianz Arena in Munich, and I saw it fleetingly a couple of times this season. But when he's playing like that, you sort of ask yourself, don't you, what's the problem every other time, Austin? I think his distribution probably is Achilles' heel. That's fair enough, but I think that can be worked on, Ryan, and get that finesse into his game in terms of his passing distribution. But when he's on point like that, and he's solid and he's concentrated, he's terrific. He put in some amount of blocks today and tackles, and just the way he read the game, I thought he was excellent, I have to say.
he bailed out Dane Murray as well because there was a mistake in the
Yeah.
first half. I think it was against Bruno Guimaraes, but he covered for his man, and that was good to see. I like that. If one player makes a mistake, glad that they're not at odds with each other. They go and make that tackle. They go and help their teammate. I thought not just Austin Trusty, I thought Anthony Ralston was strong again today as well. Another player who doesn't know the meaning of a pre-season friendly, it would seem. I don't know if he watched Braveheart before he came out onto the pitch or something, but he was so up for it. He was ready for it, and it was great to see. There was a block in particular that he had where he was winded by the ball just before half time. I believe that was Tony Ralston. It might have tickled him, to be honest, because he's a bit of a hard man, but he took it well and he threw his body on the line, which is, for a pre-season game, you don't need to do that. You wouldn't normally need to do that, but it's a great habit to get into if they're putting their body on the line for the cause.
I mentioned Trusty and Vincent and Alison. I also mentioned that he doesn't care about the mood music either, about Celtic signing more defenders. He keeps talking himself up and saying, I had an excellent season last season. And it's just like, brilliant. I love that attitude, Ryan, but that's the kind of performance that will back up those words in that statement. You know, performances like that, the one in Bergamo, the one in the Allianz Arena against Munich, as I've already mentioned. So we know it's there with Trusty. He just needs to show it a wee bit more consistently, doesn't he?
He does, and I quite like him as an individual. I like the way that he speaks and press conferences, post-match interviews as well. I think he's a very likeable character, and he's a player that you want to see do well at Celtic because he's clearly happy where he's at. He wants to make it happen in his Celtic career. He's had a lot of movement in his early. I mean, I know that he's 26, but he's played for a whole host of clubs, both permanently and on loan. So he'll be looking at this summer as a period of, I want some stability in my professional career, and showings like that today will help him in terms of getting that other spot alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers when he returns. Got to remind everybody that Cameron Carter-Vickers and Alistair Johnson have still to return to this squad as well as some new signings, Yamada to come into the squad too. So exciting times. Austin Trusty had a really good game today. I thought there was no nonsense defending, which is what I liked. But when he was able to and when it wasn't too risky to do so, his playing out from the back was very effective. So, yeah, a really solid showing. I said in my player ratings or my sort of player analysis today that he was the best defender on the park by some distance. I stand by that because I thought he was tremendous for Celtic and really didn't look out of place against Premier League opposition.
Yeah, both him and Anamura caught the eye for me as well, and obviously Tierney's always...
Anamura's... I haven't really had the chance to chat about Anamura. He looks like a football player, if you get what I mean. Now, I know that Celtic got 11 football players, but he looks like a talented player that can be moulded into a good player. There's a piece on Celtic Way in which Josh was speaking to Dan Orlowitz, the Japanese expert, Japanese football expert, about Anamura, and he was talking about how he can be moulded into a really good defender. I think he's got all the attributes there. His passing's good. His positioning looks quite good as well. Don't know if he'll stay at the club and be an understudy to Kieran Tierney or he'll go out on loan. But in terms of the former, I think there's no better person that he can learn from and become a left back than Kieran Tierney. I think that would be a solid decision from Brendan Rodgers. I know there's been a lot of talk about different people coming in to be that understudy, but with every passing game and every game that he plays against higher and higher opposition, he's excelling out there.
I'll caveat that, Ryan, by saying that the same was thought of Kobayashi, and then Kobayashi went to Ibrox and folded.
The physicality, yeah.
I'd like to see what happens with Anamura, what the physical rough and tumble side of Scottish football, because it will come, and I hope he can stand up to that. But the early signs for me, and the small sample size, are very, very good. And, there'll be sterner tests to come. In terms of the ramping up of the pressure that he'll be put under. But, I think the Celtic supporters, like the manager, have been pleasantly surprised by Anamura and they want to see more of him. But, as you say, they want to see even more of Kieran Tierney. So, but I think as understudies go, then if he can continue to produce that kind of level, then Celtic are well stocked at left back.
He's got a bit of the Mikael Lustig about him. I would say he's the player that he reminds me of the most. Now, Mikael Lustig, I believe, made his debut for Celtic as a centre-back, although he then moved out to the right with Anamura, it's obviously the left. But I do see the same. I'm not comparing the two directly, and it'll take a long time before Anamura gets anywhere near the legacy that Mikael Lustig has at Celtic. But in terms of from watching the player and observing the player in person, today was my first time watching the player in person. A lot of the things are a lot of the motions that he does and the positions that he picks up are very similar to what Mikael Lustig did. If he can be half as good as Lustig at the age of 23, then I don't think anyone will be complaining. But like I said, and I'll hammer home the point, I think perhaps maybe being that understudy or being one of the options, even if Celtic bring in another left back, learning under professionals that have played that position longer could be the making of him. Training every day against top quality oppositions, either that or sending him out on loan to a physical league where he can get used to the physicality. Because I think that'll be the one drawback to his game, coming up against more physical opponents. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. He did well today.
Yeah, and also as well, Ryan, they continued from where they left off against Sporting. They were playing it out from the back, and they looked very comfortable at doing that. A couple of times they were put under pressure with the high press from Newcastle, but they played their way out of trouble in those situations. And I know your heart's in your mouth every time they start that, but they seem to be a lot more comfortable with it, don't they? And kind of understand where they're going with it.
There's nothing that delights me more, apart from perhaps goals on the pitch, to be honest, but than those cutting passes through the centre, through the midfield, into the wide areas. Yeah. I love that. That just shows a team that's working for each other and working together and can collaborate and cooperate together and the team. I thought that was shown in a number of moments today. It's actually a game that I'd quite like to watch back if I get the chance. Some of the transitions in particular were really, really fun to watch today. And there was the excitement in the crowd. You know, when you're sitting in the crowd and you can hear the fans getting a little bit giddy every time Celtic go forward. That shows you that they're in a pretty good place. And it was a very, there was two teams. You had one team that played the 60 minutes. You had the second team, apart from Tierney, who came on earlier, played the remaining 30, 25 minutes. But there was excitement with the players that were going off and the players that were coming on. And for the first time in a wee while, I was like, Celtic might actually have a little bit of depth here, especially in the midfield area. You look at Bernardo, it's going to be a tough task for him to break into that midfield, despite how talented he is. Luke McCowan, again, showed a good performance. Where will he be at the start of the season in terms of the pecking order of the midfield? Arne Engels, people were writing him off after Wednesday night, saying that he was a failed signing and he should leave the club because he had one subpar performance in a pre-season game. That's all we've got to go by at the moment. But Engels had a much better game this afternoon. I thought he was strong both with and without the ball, and he's a good player, Tony. There's a lot of people online that think that he isn't a good football player, but he clearly is. It's just all about getting the right system for him to thrive. It's going to be an interesting midfield this season, is what I'm trying to say. Long story short, there's plenty of options. Nygren excites me, despite today maybe being one of his quieter cameos since coming on, but still a couple of nice touches here and there. But there's so much quality, and in the second half, almost completely forgot. Ring the klaxon, it's Hatate time. He was the best player in the park in the second half, and when he came on till the end of the game, and a midfield or an engine room that also included the likes of Sandro Tonali, who's such a good player, and he showed in patches today how good he is for Newcastle. Hatate looked like the best midfielder on the pitch. It was a metronomic performance in which he could just control what was happening. He was dictating the tempo, going out wide when needed, and playing some good passes as well. Was really impressed with Hatate again, but I've been impressed in every game that he's played so far in pre-season.
860 people joining us live. Thanks, guys. Time on a Saturday evening. It's 6:20 on Saturday. I think everybody just enthused by that performance, Ryan, and it's been gradually getting better with every passing performance in pre-season for Celtic. So really excited by that. Anything else catch your eye, Ryan? I know obviously Kieran Tierney coming back, great reception for Kieran, but it was always going to be like that, wasn't it?
It was always going to be, and I do agree with you with that. I think part of that was because of Anamura's good performance for Celtic that he got that standing ovation, and he deserved it. I actually think it's great management from Brendan Rodgers as well to single him out. I think he's done that on purpose. Brought him off first and brought Tierney on so that Anamura, not just so that Kieran Tierney can get his moment with the Celtic support, but also so that Anamura can feel that love from the Celtic support to him and let him know that, right, Rodgers said a couple of things after the Cork City game or the Queen's Park game, I can't remember exactly, about him being potentially going out on loan. With every game that he plays, I think that reality becomes less and less, or fewer and fewer of transpiring, because he's doing so well with the game time that he's been afforded by the manager. I think he has listened to those comments by Brendan Rodgers and he's taken them personally, which is the best way to do it. Go and show it in the football park, and he's done that today. But good management from Rodgers and bringing him off, giving him that ovation. Kieran Tierney coming on, it was a heartfelt moment. Probably the loudest cheer of the day was Tierney coming onto the park.
Yeah.
I'm just in my head. I'm going through all the players, and there was not one subpar performance among them. They were all at least a 7, most were 8s out of 10 today, which was really good.
Shinya Mada was introduced to the crowd as well, Ryan, before the game. Nice for him to take his bow and get a cheer from the Celtic supporters. He'll be desperate to come on and show what he's got, won't he?
Yeah, and I listened to his interview. I was writing a bit this morning about Shinya Mada and sorting Josh's piece for the site as well. Really impressed by the way that he carries himself, and impressed by a couple of other individuals that clearly sold the club to him and had only had positive things to say. And I think that then bodes well for their respective futures at the club. It was Anamura and Hatate that both sold them on the move to Celtic, and Hatate said, and this is Yamada's words himself. He says that playing for Celtic is a privilege. Don't you just love to hear that from a Celtic player that understands where he is, that understands the love of the support that he gets, and the position that he's in. Looking forward to seeing more of Shinya Mada. I think we'll see our first glimpse of him, or catch our first glimpse of him in Como for the Como Cup against Ajax. But yeah, another striker in the door, another signing. Hopefully can hit the heights that he did last season for Kawasaki.
How do you think the captain played today? I thought it was excellent, I have to say. But I just expect a high bar from Callum McGregor, so it's but you have to
look out of place, Tony.
Yeah, you have to single him out when he does well, and again, he's another one who's hit the ground running in pre-season. I thought been very impressed with these levels. It'll be easy for him to think about kind of winding down, but he just doesn't, does he? He just doesn't want to give it up.
Now you're seeing the differences, because this time last season he was just coming off the back of the Euros and then coming into pre-season for Celtic. Obviously announced his international retirement ahead of the next squad, but now he's had a full summer to just relax, recharge, and you're seeing the benefits of that already, even in pre-season. I think he'll start as he means to go on. He's starting these games as he means to go on. He'll then go into the proper games, into the Champions League qualifiers with that renewed energy and that recharge that he's needed over the summer. A massive player for Celtic. Doesn't matter what age he is or where he's going or how long he's got left in his career. He is a massive player for Celtic, both on and off the park, and it showed again today, because he was another standout for Celtic this afternoon.
Are you going to go into the Champions League qualifiers with renewed energy and optimism, Ryan?
I was feeling pretty optimistic about them anyway, because Celtic, there was a lot of talk after the Aberdeen final, and you've only got that to focus on from then until the first game of pre-season. So a lot of people are disheartened about what happened, and it was a terrible, terrible day at the office at Hampden for Celtic. But like I said about Newcastle and coming back for pre-season and playing their first game, you do not become a bad team overnight. These are good professionals who have won so many trophies together, alongside some exciting new additions and the likes of Kieran Tierney, who's returned, of course. You've also got Benjamin Nygren and a couple of other names to come as well. They're all good players, Tony, and good players tend to work together. I'm pretty optimistic about where this season is going. Yes, I still think they need to strengthen some key areas, some big decisions to be made about certain individuals, I would say. But from where they are just now, 2 wins on the trot against really good opposition, against Champions League opposition, and Sporting and Newcastle. I guarantee you the team that they face in the Champions League qualifiers will not be nearly as good as Sporting on Newcastle. So it's a good habit to get into, beating these teams. Then you go into the game, that Champions League qualifier, and you want the other team to be worried about what Celtic are going to do to them rather than what they're going to do to Celtic.
Over 900 people joining us. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Ryan, I'll ask you this. What do you want to happen personnel-wise for Celtic to sign before the Champions League game? Ideally, in an ideal world, who would you like to come in, or what players or positions would you prefer to come in?
I'm going to go for positions rather than players because I don't want to name any individuals.
Yeah,
but looking at
specifically.
Another centre back, I think. I want, as much as I've enjoyed Austin Trusty's performance today, I want that nailed down. I want a starter to come in. Celtic have got money in the bank. We all know they've got money in the bank. You want them to spend their money. I want a top-class winger to come in. Nicholas Kuhn was a top-class winger for Celtic, a volume winger. He has to be replaced. The Benjamin Negrin early days look good. Excited to see what he can bring, but though I don't think he's a right winger, I think he'll be playing as an attacking midfielder. Left back potentially. I'm asking for a lot here, clearly, before the Champions League games. But you've got to. I think the standards are high for Celtic, and they've got to be kept high and maintained. I don't think they'll need a destroyer for this qualifying round, although that would be potentially something that they could look at for the Champions League proper if they get there, hopefully when they get there. And another striker, because I look at a point that I was going to make that I didn't bring up was Callum Osmond didn't make it off the bench today. I think that says a lot about where his future is. I think he'll be away from Celtic on a loan deal. It's not to say that his career's over at Celtic all of a sudden. I just think he'll need that game time away from Celtic to break through in professional football. You've got to remember he's not played a senior game of football in his career. He's got to show that. Go out, thrive on a loan spell, maybe much like Kenny, and then come back and fight for your place. But I'd like another striker alongside Yamada. And as it turns out, so does Brendan Rodgers, because that's the comments he keeps on reiterating.
Yes.
So I'm not asking for too much, Tony.
No, not in the slightest. Celtic 4, Newcastle United 0. Celtic win the inaugural Adidas Trophy, Ryan. We're all pleased about that. I'm going to throw it over to you again. Your final thoughts about today, sum up about today, your thoughts?
For a pre-season game, a very enjoyable day and a very good workout against very good opposition. It's not a bad habit to be getting into beating teams like Sporting and Newcastle. That's sort of my final thoughts for today. An enjoyable pre-season game, an enjoyable atmosphere at Celtic Park, and on to the Como Cup. Make it a pre-season treble.
Indeed. Can't say fairer than that. Guys, thank you so much. Over 900 join us on the live chat. We really appreciate it. We will be back on Monday to do it all again, pour over it. You can never get tired of pouring over Celtic victories and where we discuss some issues that we didn't bring up. But Ryan, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad the atmosphere was terrific. You can go home and watch it again and pick up something fresh if you're on the chat on Monday. But guys, thank you so much. Take care. Have a great weekend. That's what 2 great wins in a row, Ryan, against Champions League calibre opposition. Can't ask fairer than that, can you?
A great habit to get into and a very enjoyable day at work.
Take care, guys. We'll see you all back on Monday. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys.